Always be a student, be an avid learner, come with curiosity because there might be things that we haven't learned or experienced before that we can take from other people who have experienced different things than we have in different ways that we have. Hey, Tanner O'Brien here, senior partner within Action Coach here in Central Texas and the founder and CEO of Benefit Marketing. Generally, if you have not kind of consumed some of my content before, I am an avid lover of business, investment, and just kind of the different strategies and pieces that actually going in and applying them within business. So kind of my aim, my goal is to share the lessons that I'm learning along the way from many other, gurus and business folks and all that kind of stuff out there. But what's it actually like, and what are the lessons I'm learning as I go and I apply some of these lessons in our own business as we continue to grow and develop and all of that kind of stuff. So on these, it is Friday at the time of recording this, and part of what I love to do at the end of each week is just kind of look back on the previous week and say what are some of the biggest lessons that I've learned. What's the one thing that stood out to me that has helped me continue to apply and grow and things like that within the business. So this week is all about that process of learning. And I love, kind of have a little bit of a passion about this process of continued learning and personal development and all things like that. So that's going to be kind of the topic of what resonated with me, what was ultimately a good reminder for me this week. And, I was having what started all this, right? So I was having a conversation with a very successful business person. And this business person has, I think they've done hundreds of millions of dollars in both revenue and profit and all that kind of stuff, built, a couple different successful businesses, has a real estate portfolio that's quite massive, like all intents and purposes, a very successful individual. And he was sharing a little bit about a story where he went to a conference, conference get together with some other, business professionals within a specific industry. And, he walks in, he's actually probably one of the most successful people to walk into the room in terms of like what he's accomplished in business and some things that he's done, et cetera. And what was kind of a profound reminder for me this week was how he talked about how he approached the situation. So it can be very easy to be like, I already know all this stuff. These people are below me. They haven't accomplished what I have accomplished. And, why would I listen to them? But that is not his approach. Instead, he talks about how he sat down at the bar and he was having conversations with different people at this conference and, meeting other people and having lunch and just having conversations with people. And instead of saying, here's all the things that I'm doing that are fantastic, he's asking questions, he's probing, he's learning and like genuinely wanting to know what's working for these individuals, what's not working, how are they solving some of these different problems, because there may be things that this gentleman hadn't heard of before, hadn't seen, or hadn't thought of in this particular way, or there might be a strategy or something that's working for somebody else that he just hasn't deployed. There's always something that he can learn and glean from those conversations, even if it's just one little piece of it. And that was just a profound reminder of like, here's somebody who's, for all intents and purposes, is a very successful individual. And he chooses to walk into most situations saying, what can I learn here? How can I continue to grow? How can I continue to get better, regardless of who's kind of sitting in front of me? There's always nuggets to be uncovered. And that was just a reminder for me that regardless of where we are in kind of that journey of success in life and business and whatever, is just there's always something to continue to learn. And so like the big takeaway is always be a student. Always be a student, be an avid learner, come with curiosity because there might be things that we haven't learned or experienced before that we can take from other people who have experienced different things than we have in different ways that we have. And that was just a really cool reminder for me because I know that there have been times, in my career in building business and just life in general where, I'm down here at the student level and I'm learning a whole bunch of stuff and I learn and I get better and I'm like, I kind of know all this stuff. And, I'm working with people that, quote unquote are beneath kind of what we've accomplished. It's like, what can I learn from them? And the reality is just because I've figured something out or we've figured something out in one small little area that's that's provided some success doesn't mean that, people who haven't figured that one thing out yet don't know a whole bunch of other stuff that I don't know yet. So there's always this give and take, and this ability to learn from the folks around us. It was a refreshing reminder, specifically for me as we kind of went through this week. So that was the one thing that I got from this week. I take that into kind of how does this play out in the, I don't know, real world, in day to day learning and all of that kind of stuff. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Because we're not always going to conferences. We're not always seeing and having these conversations with people. What are other ways that we're consuming content? How does this continue to play out? So I'll give a little bit of example of what that looks like for me, and maybe that resonates with some of you out there. But I am an avid learner. I love kind of the ability to continue to grow as an individual. So because of that, I read a lot of books. I reread a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts, watch a lot of videos, both long form, short form. Try to go to a lot of conferences, classes, talk to other people, all that kind of stuff. But on like a week to week basis, it's podcasts, it's videos, it's reading books, it's those sorts of things. So I've kind of gotten to this point where, one, I'll reread books, but instead of like sitting down and saying, all right, I'm going to read this entire book again, I may take 3 or 4 books that all kind of have different themes that are relevant to me today that I've read before, but I'm going to actually skim through them, find kind of the pieces that stand out. And I'm going to read, this chapter, that chapter, and kind of these different pieces of it, with the aim of what's the one thing that resonates with me today? What's the one thing I can take out of it? Because there's a lot of different pieces I can pull from it at different times, but what's the one thing that matters today? And that's the piece that has really been helping me. So this goes for like podcasts and audiobooks and things like that as well. I tend to consume a lot of my audio content while I'm exercising. Always got to get a workout in on a daily basis, so I pair that habit up with a lot of brain learning as well. And for those of you that do that, it's hard to focus on 2 things at once and give it your all. So it's the learning piece is almost in the background. So I don't learn as much, or I don't absorb as much of it as I would as if I were to just sit down and really focus on it, or sit down and read a physical book. But that doesn't mean it's not valuable. So I'll go through that process, and I'll be listening to different things. And I just make sure that when something resonates, when something connects, what's that one thing during that entire time period that, like, that's the thing that resonated with me today. So I sit down and I make sure I like pause the podcast in the middle of the workout, and I just go type it into, the notes app on my phone or the reminders app or something like that, just some place where I know I'm going to get to it, and I can go back and I can take a look at it later on. But I look for just one thing. Like, I don't need a whole bunch of stuff. Just what's one thing that I can take and I can apply and I can, try something with. I do this a lot with long or short form content, right? I'll sit down and I'll scroll through, Instagram reels, or I'll scroll through YouTube shorts. I tend to have a slant in my feed towards, business content and personal development and different things that are kind of beneficial for me to learn and grow through, as opposed to being more entertaining type of content. So, I'll burn 30 minutes, or I'll burn 45 minutes just scrolling through and listening to things. And sometimes I walk away from it. I'm like, man, I just burned this time. Why did I do that? But if I can walk away with just, this one video really resonated with me, and this one video had something that I want to take and I want to try, then I know that it was worth it, because it was a time that I've learned something that allows me to go further the things that I want to do in my life. So the example this week is I was scrolling through, and I came across some videos of Brian Tracy. And the specific one this week was his exercise of writing down kind of one goal on a sheet of paper, and then forcing yourself to come up with the 20 answers to how we can achieve that particular goal. So he basically laid out that the first 5 answers are probably relatively easy. The next 5 a little bit harder, takes a little bit more time, but then those last 10 are just like super difficult most of the time to come up with the answers. But once we get to the 18th, 19th, 20th one, and we've really forced our brain to come up with ideas and thoughts and things like that, Dude, that's where those like game changing answers come in because we've allocated the time for it. So, kind of a cool thing. And I took it. I'm like, all right. So, I watched all of this stuff. That's the one that really stood out to me. So, I went and I wrote it up on my whiteboard. I'm like, that's the one thing I'm going to go do. And the time was worthwhile because I learned something that was beneficial for me to try and actually implement into my own life, my own business, and things like that. So, all in all, it's the what's the one thing, whether it's reading books, it's listening to podcasts, it's listening to audiobooks, it's watching different video content, whatever it is from any source, any type of person, whatever. What's the one thing that resonates the most? Writing it down and make sure that we're taking a moment maybe at the end of the week and say, all right, what's the one thing I got from the last 7 days? I'm looking at 7 different pieces. Now, which one of these 7 do I want to go implement or test, or try or whatever in the next week or so? So always be a student, always be a learner. It doesn't have to be this like I'm consuming so much content and I need to learn all of this stuff. Sometimes it's just like, let's just get in that consistent habit of always being curious, always looking for something that I can learn from every situation. And if I can just take one nugget away from it, then we're good. So that's my lesson from the week. And it doesn't matter where we are, whether we're just starting out or we're, decades into business and are super successful. Those that I've had conversations with that are super successful continue this mindset, continue this thought pattern as they continue to grow, because there's always a way to grow and learn. So always be a student is my lesson from this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If this is something that resonated with you today, share with me. Put it in the comments below. Share what's the one thing that you learned either from this podcast, or what's the one thing that you learned from this week. Share it with others, because shared learnings are some of the best learnings out there as we continue to learn and grow together. So with that, thank you so much, and we will see you again next week.